We are a little light tonight. I only see about 70 people on right now, but we are just coming off of TRLC. We have people at three different VOAD and EM conferences this week between the National VOAD Conference in St. Louis, the Governor's Hurricane Florida Conference down in Florida, and the Louisiana Emergency Management Conference. So we got folks spread all over right now, but it is the second Tuesday of the month. It is 1900 by my clock, which means it is time for your monthly South Branch all hands call. We have a little bit of a modified agenda for you. We'll kind of kick off with our situation update, drive through some good intel from the functional reps, do a TRLC recap, and then close out with some announcements and recognitions. So that's the game plan for tonight. Thank you guys for giving us about 45 minutes to an hour of your lives. If this is your first all hands call with us, just a quick reminder of the house rules. Ask that everyone please stay on mute unless you are the designated presenter for a given section. We've got a lot of folks on the call. When people start coming off mute, you get that terrible echo effect. And we get lost. If you do have questions throughout the call, there's a lot of information flying fast. We have a tight agenda we're trying to get through. Either drop your question in the chat and tag the presenter. They will answer it as quickly as they're able. Or if you want to have more of a back and forth, save it to the end. We will hang out and answer all questions until anything you could possibly want to know has been resolved. My name is Drew Hanna. I'm the Deputy Ops for the South Branch, and let's get to it, folks. We'll kick it off with just a little bit of our situational update here. This is something that shouldn't be a huge shocker to anyone who's spent a time or two in the saddle with either the Old Southeast, the Old South Central, or with us in the South Branch. But Atlantic hurricane season is upon us. We are 23 days out. Obviously, the hurricane season in and of itself is just days on a calendar. A hurricane can strike at any moment, but this is the period that the NOAA really monitors and is most concerned about these very powerful storms impacting and coming ashore. You can kind of see in this chart here some of the proposed metrics by the different models. One is from the Weather Company, one is from Colorado State University and their predictions, but ranging from 13 to 15 named storms, 6 to 7 of which would become hurricanes, and only 2 or 3 forecast as major. These predictions, it might seem comforting to hear things like, we're going to have a normal season. And only 2 or 3 that are Cat 3 or higher. But look back at last year, we only had 2 storms that were Cat 3 or higher. But all that really mattered was one of those was Hurricane Ian, the other was Hurricane Fiona. Both did a lot of damage to areas that we care about. And we spent a ton of time and effort trying to help folks pull themselves back together after the effects of the storm. So even if the season itself doesn't see a lot of storms, no reason for us to not be super vigilant as we approach the year. Some other things, just helpful information as we look at what to expect. This is currently a transitioning ENSO cycle. They do expect that we will complete that transition by August, which is typically the height of hurricane season. We're transitioning from the La Nina to the El Nino cycle. What that really means for us, why we care about it in hurricane terms, is as the system will tend to shift the jet stream further south, which increases the wind shear, especially in that Gulf area, which tends to drive the hurricanes to the north and away from the Gulf. Historically, this is good for us, right? We, as the South Branch, own a bunch of real estate there. But also, if we're keeping those storms, on the East Coast, that's less time for them to form, less time for them to get powerful. Also, that wind shear will kind of help keep them from organizing as much. And if it can drive more of those storms back out to sea, away from the coast, away from where they're going to do damage, that's good news for all of us. So that's one of the factors which is being taken into consideration as we look at this year. On the flip side of that, we are looking at a really unseasonable and kind of concerning Atlantic and Gulf Coast water temperatures. So, another big driver of the strength and power of hurricanes is the water temperature of both the Atlantic and the Gulf. The warmer the water, the more powerful the storms, and the more concerned we are about what they're going to do. As we are looking at right now, so this was the temperatures from April. These are temperatures that you would typically see in the middle of summer in August, and it's already that hot. So that could potentially mean that we have stronger storms forming earlier in the season, which obviously has a lot of implications for us, especially as we look at timelines around making sure that our caches are tip top, making sure that we are prepared, and also just the overall length of the season. It gives the hurricanes more shots at forming, coming on shore, and doing damage to, again, one of the areas that we care about. So this is just some food for thought. All of these are, predictions, are scientists kind of doing their best wild guess about what they think is going to happen based off of historical models and the information that we have. But we really don't know what's going to happen until we get into the season, until some of these weather patterns start to form, and we can really get a much better sense of what's going to happen and when and where. And really, as we discussed earlier on, it only takes one storm to cause significant impacts. So we will hope for the best, we will prepare for the worst, and we will be prepared for no matter what happens. So that wraps up sort of our situational update. I'm going to pass it off to our first briefing team of the night, which is our planning team. Justin, over to you, sir.
Good evening, guys. My slide's gonna be a lot faster than Drew's. Wasn't a lot less scary in regards to the weather coming up. All right, so at planning to date, it looks like we've come through 22 operations. It's been a pretty wet year so far. A lot of storms, a lot of tornadoes. As Drew mentioned, the seasons are not really a thing anymore. So it's been a pretty consistent tornadoes rocket out, and we'll probably continue to see them going forward as we progress into hurricane season. Speaking of progressing into hurricane season, we're going to renew our focus towards the mitigation operations throughout the geo area. That's something that both me and Drew and TR and respective need to look at, really kind of honing in and getting that as part of our standard procedures going forward. The AAR is also a big focus of us going forward. Really need you guys to continue to add in your input. So in order to maximize the effectiveness of all the feedback for the AARs, and that way we can make sure that your voice is heard. And also another thing that we're working on is consolidating the battle rhythm for South Branch in order to minimize the amount of time for all these meetings that we have, meetings upon meetings, have more of a streamlined focused. And then finally, another big push that we have over the next couple months is volunteer recruitment. If you have any volunteers that gray shirts that have the requisites, 100, 700 PSC, the want or the desire, become a planning leader. That is something that we need to build our bench, build our capacity for as we approach hurricane season. And that's my big takeaway for tonight. Any questions?
And if you've got them, drop them in the chat for Justin, or hang on till the end and we'll get them covered. Thank you, Justin. Looking ahead, now just a quick glance back at the last few hundred odd days of activity, I'll pass it over to Oscar with our field readiness team.
Hey, good evening, folks. My name's Oscar. I get to serve with the South Branch Field Readiness folks, and we, as a South Branch, have been very busy. Probably don't need to tell you that, but officially, we can look back to about 1 August last year, and about 90% of the time, gray shirts, you all are in the field on an operation, response, mitigation, recovery. They're good, they're great, and there's more coming. If you want to be in a branch where things are happening, look at the total number of operations, look at where they've been, and just join in the effort. And for this is what I have, Drew. Moving on to field readiness, as a functional area, in South Branch Field Readiness, we're about helping you, the gray shirt, become a better field leader. We help you as best we can by developing opportunities and training. It's about leadership development, basically 4 areas. As a field readiness lead on the MPT, being a recon advon person, most importantly, command general staff readiness, and then making friends with all our EMs and VOAD friends. To this extent, you can see many offerings here in this slide. You'll get a look at these slides. They all have links, and you can see tabletop exercises, you can see workshops, you can see position-specific training, and you can see 3 pictures. And I point you to the third one on the right. That is coming. Might only be 1, might only be 2, might only be 3. You just need 1. Wish it wasn't so. It has been the last 6 years. It probably will be again this year. We'd like you to be ready to lead gray shirts in the field. That's what we're about. So thanks for being you, and back to you, Drew.
Thank you, Oscar. Definitely super awesome effort. Super busy several months, and nothing letting up as we move forward. So as we continue to get our gray shirts into the field, we'll check in with our mobilization team who gets them out there.
Good evening, friends. My name is Derek Berg. I'm your South Branch Mobilization Associate out of sunny Gulf Coast, Florida. And just a little recap of some of the things we've done there on the left in regards to the things that mobilization is a part of with the mission planning teams, with recons, advons, our favorite call to actions, and then getting shit done in the operations. We are always looking for new team members. We are looking to expand the scope of what mobilization is doing to help ensure that people are getting out in the field and having their questions answered and their availability in, and are getting themselves signed up for the right op at the right time with the right skills. And with that information, we have for our mobilization leaders, we have our monthly call coming up on the 25th. We do have, if you are just interested, some cross-training. The mobilization functional onboarding will be May 25th. You can go on the SharePoint for all of the functional onboardings that will be available this month. I think we have them all this month. And then right before that season starts that no one wants to talk about, which we've already talked about, we will be doing a South Branch Mobilization AMA on May 31st to answer any and all questions from you and your fellow gray shirts on what it takes to get deployable, what it takes to get in the field, how to get everything entered in correctly, and get all those questions answered. There's a couple different opportunities to get a lot of that same information out there, but this is mobilization's presentation of that. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to that sb.mobilization@teamrubiconusa.org. Reach us on Teams. Give us a phone call, however you want to get here. We're here to support you. And if you have any questions at this time, throw them in the chat and we will be glad to answer them. Have a great night.
And I'll just double foot stomp that AMA on the 31st of May. That's one of the most popular things for our gray shirts, especially folks who are newer to the organization and not in leadership. They want to understand the mysterious whys and hows of why they get picked or what they're doing wrong to not get picked. So spread the word far and wide on that one, my friends. We're now going to jump over to our logs team, and I believe Rich is my presenter tonight.
Yes, I am. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rich Veith. I am the geographic area logs lead for Tennessee, Kentucky, and North Mississippi, also known as the springtime busy sector of South Branch. As far as updates for logistics go at branch wide, periodic inventories are upcoming. I know ours is July or June 3rd for Tennessee. So there, check your roll calls. Definitely need help with those. There's plenty of work to do to get these trailers ready for hurricane season, so they can just be torn apart again. But we also have functional onboarding for logistics. If you want to learn about the mystical, magical, how does your stuff get to there from here, May 18th, so in 9 days. And then obviously we have the manuals, and the other events coming up is the logistics event for Florida, specifically related to long-term recovery. I know that containers being built out, Connex, so definitely they will need help down there if you're in the Florida area. Our monthly meeting is tomorrow, because it is always after the all hands. And just a reminder for everybody that for insurance reasons, TR-owned equipment cannot and will not be stored at the home of any Glacier, because we want to keep our equipment. And TR equipment must be transported via rental vehicle. I don't care if you own a semi. Do not hook the TR trailer to it and drive it somewhere. Use the rental vehicles. So also there's South Texas cash reset in Houston, and they're Humble in that area. So please make sure you are helping out your loggies, because yes, when the Gray Sky operations ends, everybody goes home and the loggies have to keep working. So please come help us. Any questions? Drew, it can be done. There's usually a 2-inch receiver on the back, or 2.5-inch receiver on the back.
I said
Most
don't
semis.
figure it out, Rich. Don't figure it out.
I didn't figure it out. I already knew it.
You're missing out. The logistics of our tiny 16-foot trailers and a large semi truck was baffling.
Oh, I didn't say it wouldn't look ridiculous, but
it will. All right. If you've got questions for Rich, drop them in the chat. He's monitoring it closely.
Everybody has questions for me.
We're gonna keep rolling into our training update.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Hey, I had a fantastic time at TRLC, meeting all y'all wonderful people. I want to thank everybody that came out, and especially those that took part in the training breakout or found me in the crowd. We were able to take a lot of feedback and looking to adjust some of our practices around those ideas. One of the questions we received the most was about capacity building for CNGS. I'm sure that warms Oscar's heart. I am happy to share that we are trying to pilot a program right now that will hopefully work towards that, in addition to the courses that are already scheduled. And it's going to be centered around recurring mitigation and recovery operations. So we'll be trying to put a different class in each one, so that you do PSC, and then the next day you can see what an actual PSC does on an operation. So it's not quite an exercise, and you're not really sliding into the role, but it gives you a lot better of awareness of seeing the textbook answer and what really happens on an operation. So the end of July, we're having the South Branch DTC at Camp Buck Toms in Tennessee. This event is going to have all the things. So if there's a course that you're looking at taking and you're in that area, it's probably happening then. So keep your eye on roll call. It should be posted in the next week or two. Lastly, we're looking to grow the training team. So if you're interested in becoming an instructor, stepping up to be a training leader, or just want more information, please join me on 20 June for a training AMA. And if you have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to reach out. Pending any questions, back to you, Drew.
Thank you, Jeff. And again, questions for Jeff, drop them in the chat. He's here all night to help you through all the trading stuff. We're going to roll right into an update on finance from Carol.
Good evening, everyone. Carol Harrison. I am South Branch Finance Head of a great team. And we have put some information in Ask Finance. So you don't have to go through SharePoint to find out how to do things. So if you need your PEX card activated or you have a teammate that needs to know how to keep it active, then that information is out there, along with the PEX to Concur guide, which is a PowerPoint that'll walk you through all sorts of things. The TR travel offset is out there. And the ever popular, because I've just been in Concur, TRLC coding is out there under gray skies, not in blue skies. Concur coding. This has been asked for and will now be done. It will be posted at the FOB as both a QR code for all of you that are younger than I am, and actual on paper for those of you that are my age and above. It will also be posted in South Branch Ask Finance. So we're going to post the department, the location, and the EMS code so you can get that coded, and it will always be there so you can refer back to it. And it will also be included, as it usually is now, in your demo letter from finance. Next slide, please. There we go. All right. These things do happen. So this is how you walk through getting a Concur expense report done. So we've all been through it, most of us. So create the new report, add the expense, select the expense type. I won't read all of those, but here's some of the issues that we run into. For instance, the date of the receipt. The system defaults to the day that you create the item. You want to make sure that that's changed to the actual receipt date. If it was not put on your PEX card, then it's yours to get back. If it is on the PEX card, then that's company paid under payment type. The amount on the receipt should agree with the amount on your entry. And of course, the department, location, and cost center. And again, I put out there that use that asterisk. It is the best thing, your bestest buddy. So if this works right. So these things do happen, but until these things stop happening, this thing will not happen. Drew, would you click the button, please? See, you won't get the money. These things are not right. We'll end up having to send it back to you. So help us all move this along smoothly. All right, next slide. Finance mission statement. I took this from a slide I found when I first got here. To be on the front lines with financial support for an evolving and dynamic first response organization. To be committed to accurate reporting and driving innovative financial processes with relentless integrity and grit. Finance is our business, and we got your six. That's all finance has for the evening.
Thank you, Carol. I'll just say, Pam, I couldn't disagree more. There's nothing I enjoy more than a call from John DeToma. He's a gentleman and a scholar.
He is
All right.
a workhorse.
He's that as well. He's that as well, Carol. All right. We'll flip over to our comms update from Chloe.
Greetings, everyone. I am Chloe, the communication specialist for South Branch. My main task is to create compelling content and share it externally with news outlets, stakeholders, partners, families, and communities who have been helped by or may need help from South Branch in the future. I don't want to overload you with numbers, but I am proud to say that since this time last year, our Facebook reach has increased from 4,000 to 11,000 accounts. I'm sure this has to do with the hard work of the South Branch operations team and Gray Shirts. So big thank you to all of you. I would not be able to do my job without you guys. I'd also like to give a warm welcome to our new comms leaders, Kay Inman and Melissa Snizek. And I'm absolutely ecstatic to have them on the team. If you or anyone you know are super awesome public speakers or photographers or experts at like social media, please send them my way. You can definitely ping me on Teams, Brittany Clow, or you can also email me at brittany.clow@teamrubiconusa.org. Also, with that being said, our communications onboarding will be May 18th at 5 p.m. PT. I'll go ahead and drop the link for the onboarding for you guys, just so you guys can keep track. But that is it from me. I hope everyone keeps having an awesome night.
Thank you, Chloe. And again, any questions you have for Chloe, any comms, queries, say that 3 times fast, drop them in the chat for her, and she will get to you. Our next functional update is a new functional update, so requires a little bit more explanation, but hopefully this isn't entirely shocking to everyone on the call. But something we're going to start including is monthly updates from the CEO Action Group. If you aren't familiar with the CEO Action Group, it is, and you can see the mission statement right there, an empowered group of gray shirts. It's a mix of full-time staff, volunteer, contractors, CHFP. Every category of gray shirt that we have is represented, and they collaborate with leadership to create curated and actionable recommendations to improve culture, integration with communities, and maximize our mission outputs. The CEO's Action Group, or CAG, and is affectionately called, is the outgrowth of merging 2 different subcommittees. Previously, we had a Culture Council, which Jake Wood kicked off, I want to say, 5 years ago. And then we had a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Group, begun by Carlos Becerra, when he was with us as a defense fellow. And those 2 groups kind of were working on similar but not the same goals. And so the decision was made to merge them. They report directly to Art, meet with him on a monthly basis. But as it says, right, the purpose of this group is to be a direct line to Art about issues affecting gray shirts, so that we can rapidly and effectively work with the right stakeholders to create a better, more inclusive, and more functional Team Rubicon for everyone. So just some quick notes. So we kind of talked about the makeup, right? It's a mix of folks from all over. That means that every physical branch has a mix of staff and volunteers who sit on the Culture Council. Currently, your reps are myself and Son representing the South Branch staff. And then you have 3 gray shirt leaders among you who sit on the council as well and represent. That's Jen Nider from Fort Worth, Laura from North Carolina, and Oscar from down in Killeen. So they are sort of your conduits if you have questions or feedback or something that you want to push up. These are the reps that you can contact and say, hey, like, this is an issue. Is this something we can work on? They're also working on like a larger submission box that you can just submit directly if you're not comfortable talking to one of these folks. But these folks are engaged every month. One of the questions every month in the CEO Action Group meetings is, are there any hot spots that we need to be aware of? So it's a great way to make sure that we're staying topical and current in things that are of a concern to you guys. Terms are 2 years, and we typically do those changeovers in January and July. And then as members change over, so as new members come on and old members go off, the old member offboarding serves as a mentor to that newly onboarded CAG member, so that they can sort of understand how the group works and how the different subcommittees function and where to plug in. So as you can see there, right, it will be opening again in July. So there'll be more information about joining if you're interested coming out soon. And do understand that it is a pretty small number of gray shirts who get to sit there. By design, we have to keep it small. So not everyone who is interested will potentially get to sit on it right away. But by design, this group will be turning over pretty consistently to sort of ensure that we're constantly getting fresh perspectives, and also to further drive awareness of the CAG and its goals deeper into the organization. So when I talk about the CAG and its goals and what it's doing, you might be like, what does that mean, Drew? Well, here's some specific examples just to help make sure that everyone's tracking what the CAG is doing, why we're doing it. So there's currently 3 different subcommittees that the CAG is working through. So we have a DEI committee, a culture committee, and a climate compact committee. So each of those groups is sort of focused specifically on those sub functions of culture and organizational equity. So the equity group, some of their recent initiatives that they're driving on, one of those has been the creation of the community brief. A good example of that would be if you deployed to the Navajo Nation during our pandemic support, or if you were down in Florida working in some of the communities in Lee County. Basically, it's a briefing and snapshot. It's designed to inform excuse me, both the command staff team, but also gray shirts who are on an operation of specific, characterizations and cultural mores that they might not be aware of, right? We as gray shirts travel from all over the country. We go to communities that, aren't necessarily aware of who we are, may do or perceive things differently. So the more educated we are as a gray shirt team, the better we can understand the needs of the communities that we're attempting to serve. And so the community snapshot is a way to help formalize that process and ensure that as gray shirts are being onboarded to an operation, part of that brief out is on the character and the nature of the folks that they're going to be serving, so that we understand the communities that we're working with. Another is the inclusivity operation, which is currently being headed up by Jake Underwood. And that's basically looking to understand how we as an organization are responding to the needs of gray shirts who may have, disabilities that may not be visible, or have other specific needs that are different than the able-bodied or the typical gray shirt that is anticipated. So working to better understand their needs so that we can fully employ folks on operations. Because, as a gray shirt community, obviously we're a lot stronger. And also one of our cultural principles is everyone has a role. So to fully embrace that, working to understand how we can take folks who may have a disability, whether visible or invisible, and ensure that we are finding ways to appropriately and fully employ them on operations, as opposed to just sort of being like, well, I don't know what you could do on this operation. Perhaps you should find another organization to volunteer with. No, we want them as part of Team Rubicon. We want them in gray shirts. So we'll take that extra effort to make sure we get them out there. The Culture Committee has a few key initiatives that they're driving on. One of those is campfires, working to ensure that we're providing a consistent and quality experience for gray shirts who are deploying to the field. So that's included the creation of a guide, as well as training modules, so that the CNG teams that are out there are able to effectively and consistently host campfires. It also includes a bit about the original campfire in Haiti, experienced by the group as they return from their work in Port-au-Prince. But just to help everyone understand sort of what the expectations are, how we look to conduct those, and why we conduct them as a cultural touch point, so that becomes more consistent for all gray shirts. Another effort from the culture team is the memorializing of gray shirts who have passed. Obviously, we've had more than our share of that here in the South in the last year. It was pretty tough, I think, for a lot of folks involved, but also some of the feedback and things that we observed is that we weren't handling it consistently, not just in the South Branch, but across the organization. Really caused a lot of reflection for us. And so looking at that, a way to make sure that we standardize so that when our gray shirts unfortunately leave us in that way, we make sure that we are communicating it appropriately and consistently. So look for some more information on that in the near future. And then another new one from the culture team is operational pulse checks. These are designed to be mid-wave efforts to understand the experience of gray shirts who are deploying. Because a lot of times, for gray shirts who deploy, they're out there for a week at a time, and it's not until after they've gone home that we hear that their experience was less than what we are striving for as an organization. So these are sort of like quick little snapshots. It's basically like, are you having a good time? It's a little bit more specific than that. I think there's 5 simple questions, a 1 through 5 scale. It takes about 2 minutes to fill out, but just gives us a sense as an organization of whether that operation is heading in the right direction or whether we need to do some course correction to ensure a quality experience for the folks out there. Third, but certainly not least, in terms of our subcommittees is the climate committee. One of the big things that they've done is working to replace all of the packing materials in the TR store with stuff that's biodegradable, and then working with our providers for more eco-friendly shipping. So, does it matter if you get your TR beanie the next day if that significantly increases the carbon output of getting it shipped to you? Or is it better if we, use a slightly slower but more eco-friendly model of transportation? The other thing that we are starting to develop and lean into is how to reduce the use of single-use plastics on operation. Read into that water and Gatorade bottles. They're sort of ubiquitous everywhere we go. And, obviously, like, we have concerns about sanitation and hydration. It's why we lean heavily into using them. It's the quickest, fastest, most consistent way to ensure that folks are staying hydrated in a safe and sanitary way right now. But we also know that there's ways that we can do better and make reusable sanitary water more available. And even if we're not able to completely reduce the use of those single-use plastics on operations, we can do it in other places, like in our headquarters, at conferences that we're hosting, and then driving forward, just looking to overall reduce that footprint. So those are a few of the things they're driving on. Another great recent example was the culture team in South Branch received an input from a gray shirt who raised the issue of equity on strike teams in the field. The specific concern was, hey, for men, it's really easy to go to the bathroom, but it's a lot more difficult for women because they typically have to go find a bathroom somewhere if that hasn't been worked out in advance. And then there's also sort of the implied shame of having to pause work to go and do that. And so women are not necessarily hydrating as much as they would like to be because they're trying to not slow down the group. So how do we address that? So that's something that the team received is taking for action. And if you guys know of stuff like that, please reach out to your CEO Action Group contacts, or when we get the submission form publicized, use that. The team is here to help try and make this organization better, to take feedback that we're receiving from everyone and make it more actionable more quickly. So just appreciate everything that we've seen from everyone so far, and continue to look for updates, more abbreviated updates in the future from this group. All right, changing topics slightly, we're going to do a quick TRLC recap for everybody. It was an awesome experience. We had a ton of leaders on the ground, and I think about 80 of them were from the South Branch. So was super excited to have that big of a contingent. But I know that for every awesome gray shirt leader that was able to come out and join us in Orlando, there was 2 or 3 of you guys who were here at home who, for whatever reason, weren't able to get out there. So wanted to take a moment to sort of recap and highlight some of the lessons learned. The big takeaway that we impressed on all the team who was out there was that they were out there as representatives of the South Branch. So their job was to take that information, take those lessons learned, and bring it back to everyone else in the organization. Continue to plant those seeds of knowledge and culture so that we can grow and become more effective, better at our jobs, better in growing the organization, and better ultimately at serving all the communities that we work with. The theme for our conference this year was "We Choose to Go." The inspiration for this is a very famous JFK speech. He was delivered at Rice University down in Houston. And this was sort of the gauntlet throw during the space race. So, sort of to contextualize it in time, this was after Sputnik, which was Russia's little satellite that popped up and orbited the Earth. The US felt like it was behind. We've been launching a few satellites, but the bold vision, the bold choice of the US, and specifically under Kennedy's leadership at that time, was, it's not enough for us just to launch a satellite and get some guys up into space. Like, we're going to go to the moon, and we're going to go to the moon not just because it's the easiest thing to do. We're doing it specifically because it is a big, bold goal, and it's hard to accomplish, and we're going to have to do all of this homework to get there. But by golly, it's going to be something that inspires, that sets the world on fire, and forever changes things. And I mean, we all know that we succeeded, right? And that's true. There's something like 5,000 different inventions that were created specifically to get folks onto the moon, things like the Dust Buster and astronaut candy and all of the circuits that they developed, all these little processes and procedures, all of the industries that were driven forward specifically in service of this, because it was this big, bold goal. And the analog to Team Rubicon and kind of why we picked this theme is because, we as an organization, we're still super young, right? We're only 13 years old. We're on this awesome growth trajectory of going from 8 volunteers in 2010 to 170,000 in 2023. But we're not going to rest on our laurels, because our goals and our vision and our desire to serve is much, much bigger than that. And the opportunity for this organization to make impact is much bigger than that. And we reignite that every time we both collectively and we individually make the decision to step forward and serve a community. We're advancing ourselves towards that goal. So we're trying to inspire, to connect all of this team with this opportunity, to choose to go. When the challenge is in front of us, we're going to choose to step into it, to do it, not because it's easy to do, but because it's hard to do, because we know that our communities need us. So what I've asked the team to do, and this isn't by any means an exhaustive representation of all of the gray shirts or all of the things that were at TRLC, but I've asked some folks to prepare some thoughts so that they can kind of talk about their experiences there. And I'm going to take them in alphabetical order by last name. So Kathy Castile, if you can come off mute and tell us about your TRLC experience.
Sometimes it benefits you to have a early letter in the alphabet. So as Drew said, my name's Kathy Castile. I am the GEO training lead for Georgia, Alabama. I'm also part of the MTT. This was my second TRLC. I was in Colorado last year. And what inspired me most about this TRLC, and I got to see it at a bigger level here, is just the inclusivity. There's everybody loves everybody, all walks of life. There's no, if there's judgment, you don't see it. There's hugs and love to go around for every soul, and you show up just as you are, which is unique in an organization. And it's one of the things that makes me love TRLC Team Rubicon so much. What surprised me the most, I will say, is Art, our CEO. Like, he's such an amazing human. And if you haven't got the chance to talk to him, he wants to talk to every gray shirt. And like, I was walking by to introduce him to a gray shirt who's been doing phenomenal things, and he's like, "Oh, I just saw you." And I'm like, "How did you just see me?" And I happened to be on some of the recording for the Roku, but he takes the time to see that stuff and to acknowledge you and your efforts and what you're doing for Team Rubicon. He makes sure that you know you're appreciated and that you're doing something for the greater good. And one of my biggest takeaways, I will say, and I'll just wrap it up, from this TRLC is two things. One, the TR exercises. Like, I did not know that we had teams that would go out to different areas to work with emergency management agencies that maybe don't have the funding to be able to do these exercises. And it provides a great opportunity for us to let them know who TR is and basically get nested with them. And the biggest takeaway I got is since COVID, I feel, especially on the training side, that we really need to get involved with interactions again with our gray shirts. Just having that face-to-face contact, whether it's a big social or whether it's just, as one of our training folks said, if it's just bringing peanut butter and jelly sandwiches together, get together face-to-face with gray shirts, find out where they're at, maybe help them discover what their role is in TR. And my hallucination is that's how we'll get the numbers to the training events, and that's how we'll get more gray shirts out on the ops. So let's go out and make friends with some new gray shirts. Back to you, Drew.
Thanks, Kathy. Love that. And I totally agree. The culture is what keeps them coming back. Next up, and the, again, last name alphabet will be Jonathan Esquivel. Jonathan, what you got, man?
Hello, everyone. I'm with finance out of the San Antonio area, and this was my first TRLC. So what really inspired me about the conference and meeting everybody was the teamwork and willingness to answer a lot of my questions. That's I guess more closely with logistics, right, coming from the finance department, and just their willingness to help me out and answer my questions and helping me understand like their view on everything. And so that really helped me. I really enjoyed that collaboration and, you know, being willing to help me in that area. One of the things that surprised me was the amount of volunteer leaders that we do have. So I really didn't have any expectations coming into the conference. So, you know, just coming with an open mind, and was really blown away by all these great people, and just hearing their stories. And then also, I think for going into it and kind of, you know, what topics they are interested in is probably the most important thing, right? Whatever they're looking at. I think on my next one, I'll probably gear into the different roles, their side, and dealing with what challenges they deal with, and kind of seeing how that works with the finance department, how we can better work with each other, what questions we can answer. And then one of the people that I really enjoyed talking with was Jessica Green from Volunteer Management. And I think hearing her story and her background was pretty awesome. So I can feel the culture as far as a volunteer, but to see that culture reflect within the associate level with this paid staff, and seeing how TR took her and finding her fit just kind of reaffirms that culture within TR. So I was really excited to hear her, and she'll probably be one of those lifelong connections.
Excellent. Thank you, Jonathan. And next up for perspective, I'm going to pass it over to Annette.
Hi, everybody. I'm Annette Gurman. I am the Ops Associate for North and South Carolina, and this was my first TRLC. I have to say that the thing that I was most inspired about was the flow and the organization of the event. I felt like it was very, very well done, and I've been to many different conferences, and some are good, some are bad, and I think this one was right up there in the top three as far as events I've traveled to. I would say that the thing that I really love the most, outside of being able to meet new gray shirts, be able to talk to my North Carolina, South Carolina team leads, spend some time with them and with my other staff mates. I would say were the breakout sessions. I thought the topics were very good. I thought the information was very informative. It gave me a lot of food for thought to be able to bring home to my team, to those who weren't able to attend, and many things I'm going to be able to share on our monthly call this week. So I think if you are interested in seeking more opportunities with Team Rubicon, I would say become a trainer and talk to Jeff Branham about that. And as far as the person that I really enjoyed taking time and talking with was Oscar. He is our South Branch Field Readiness Lead, and he is just a wealth of knowledge and just an amazing human being.
No arguments from me on any of that. We need more trainers and more Oscars if you know how to clone people. Next, I'm going to ask to hear from Rose.
First off, shout out to Annette. That is my ops associate, and we love her out here in the Carolinas. I am Rose Lentz. I am the Central Carolinas membership lead, and this was my first TRLC. I have to say, what was inspiring about the conference was the many people and the openness that a lot of people had, which is something that is missing a lot of the times in large organizations. So to see people be able to be open with each other, ask questions, and actually listen and whatnot, that was a great thing to see. What was surprising also, it kind of goes along with the theme about, you know, we were going and stuff. I'm trying to think of the best way to word this. It said that we do it because it's hard. And one of the hardest things is reflecting back on ourselves. And again, not a lot of organizations nor leadership in other organizations tend to reflect back on themselves and see that there are faults that we need to fix. So having sessions such as having hard conversations and talking about accessibility for different gray shirts is an important thing that we need to talk about. So it was surprising. It was a good surprise to see that as we continue to move forward and we're having those conversations openly that we need to have to continue to expand the diversity and inclusivity of TR. I can't say there's one person either that I met at the conference that I'm going to stay in contact with. There were multiple people. Wendy with the Clay Hunt Fellowship, talking with her, Brenda, AM, and Christina with the talking about accessibility. A lot of great people that I learned from, a lot of great people that I didn't think I was going to meet, and a lot of great people that allowed me to listen to them, which was a huge thing for me to hear the different sides and different perceptions and what everybody thinks about TR and their experiences. So it was great. I look forward to next year and what else we can learn from each other.
Thank you, Rose. And to bring us home, I'm going to pass it over to Tim.
Hey, everybody. Tim, excuse me, I'm out of Houston, South Texas Geo admin and the Houston Field Readiness Lead. This was my first TRLC. Since I arrived with no expectations, it was great. So that was awesome. Honestly, I was just, it was very inspiring to just be able to enjoy some face-to-face fellowship with most of you who I only have like a two-dimensional relationship with. So it was kind of cool to do that. Two quick sessions that I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to post some links in here. Having tough conversations. And when I post the SharePoint link, you'll kind of get an understanding of what it's like. But basically, it was us just talking about like why we have to have tough conversations, whether that's someone's behavior, whether it's their actions and or verbal, something they said verbally, could have a negative impact on TR. And it also might be needed or required for a personal or professional development. So it can be both good and bad. Usually the difficult conversations are not the not so good. Anyway, they break down the 4 different types of conversation into 4 quadrants. And just to get you kind of inspired to look at the link that I'll post on there, look through it, read up on it, and try to get whatever you can out of it to basically get yourself into the having conversations with radical candor. It's the top right quadrant. You'll understand what I mean. And also there's steps that we provide that feedback in. Many of us who were in the military and or maybe more of the senior first responders, or maybe you civilians that have been in the leadership roles, we've had to have these difficult conversations. And what I really liked about this was it kind of just leveled how TR should be having these tough conversations. The biggest takeaway I took from the actual session itself was to be objective. And for us to be objective, we've got to truly understand like TR cultures, SOPs, value, mission statement, et cetera, so that when we do provide this feedback, it's objective. It's not subjective. It's not that I don't like you because your name is Tim. It's that, whatever. That was just an example. And then the second session that I absolutely loved, is Build the Bench. Brian Booman and Tony Aldinger, who, if you haven't heard, also was the 2023 Gray Shirt of the Year. Basically, we looked at a tool that supports the Resilient City Strategy Plan. And it's specifically being utilized mostly up in the North Branch. So I'll be having a conversation. I kind of want to put some things together. Drew, I'm just giving you a heads up, but I did provide feedback that I don't understand why TR is not coming up with one kind of tool that we're all using, and then we can all be really well versed on that one tool. But the tool that they're using, it's an Excel spreadsheet. It talks about like all the composition of their administrators, field readiness planning, the membership, basically their leadership, and then the composition of all the gray shirts. It is basically a Excel spreadsheet of what Phil covers in his EMS, his AMA that he has. I just think it'd be really cool. Like I said, the biggest takeaway that I have from that is I now know like what I need to do to build the GEO with 7 metros in it. And I didn't know. I didn't have it. I didn't have a visual representation of that. So now I do, and I think it'd be really, really advantageous for all of us to get on board with that. So anyway, that was the 2 big sessions that I liked the most. So thanks, Drew, for the time.
Thanks, Tim. Some awesome feedback, and super excited for those links. And just a call out to anybody who heard anything that, one of these folks prompted about their reflections. Hey, chase them down after this call, get more information, ask about the sessions and the people that inspired them, and do that with everyone who went to TRLC. Also call out in the announcements channel, and I'll share it in the general channel tomorrow as well. But the links to all of the live sessions that were broadcast, those are still live. So if you missed the keynote or the opening sessions, those are available for your review at your leisure on YouTube. So encourage folks to check those out as well and get a little piece of TRLC. All right, we're almost done. I know we're at the top of the hour, so bear with us for just a few more minutes. But before we get to our closing announcements, a moment of Zen with Apri.
Wow, you're really putting the pressure on to get everyone out of here on time. Okay, guys, so some well-being takeaways. TRLC was so much fun, and one of the big things that I wanted to emphasize was how great it was, the number of people that came up to the different well-being leaders and just asked us more about well-being, asked us about resourcing, how to get in contact. And that's something that I would love to see continue. So I put on there, mental health should not be a secret, neither should be the well-being team. If there's anything going on that you just want to talk about, or you want some resourcing, or you want just some guidance, then we can get you set up with the resources in your area. The well-being team would love to jump in and kind of help with some of those conversations. We are continuing to work on standardizing some processes, as mentioned earlier with the memorializing gray shirts. I know that there have been lots of different things going on, and We have not quite gotten to where we know what we're doing with the memorializing. We've got a lot of great things in the works, but until that is officially there, if something has happened and you feel like you want to process or you want some of that guidance, like if there's a gray shirt who's lost, please reach out to me. I would be more than happy to kind of help talk you through that and figure out what we can do to support. We are working on developing some new workshops. We are hoping to get the one that we did at TRLC up and going with our other one, burnout and resiliency. So doing one on pre, during, and post-deployment mental health. We did hear a lot of people ask us about getting back into post-deployment reach outs, and that's something that we've been working on with membership. So hopefully that is one of the things that you'll see coming down the pipeline. We did hear y'all. That's awesome. And then just to kind of leave y'all with something, we did do this during our workshop. If you didn't get to go to it, I highly encourage you to reach out and just ask some questions. I'd love to give you some more information. But we really want to emphasize that people take care of their mental health before, during, and after deployment. So we've got a really busy season most likely coming up, and we would love for people to really just work on increasing their resiliency now, work on developing some coping skills that you might be able to take with you into the field, figure out who your support system is. Obviously, TR does a great job of providing a support system. Learn what your resources in your area are, all of the different things. It's so important, especially before we go into a very busy season. We want all of y'all to be your most resilient selves. So like I said, please know your well-being, people. Please reach out to us. We would love to help with the small and the big stuff. And that's it.
Thank you, Apri. Next up, we have some announcements about recognition. Something we don't do enough in this organization, but we're trying to do it more and more and more. You guys are out there every day doing awesome shit. And so the Culture Coin system exists to acknowledge and celebrate the hard work that you guys are doing out there. We were able to award 3 of the 5 that you see on your screen at TRLC to those participants in person. So super excited to do that. So that was Don, Topher, and Oscar. Don was recognized with the Your Mother's a Donor coin for his work during Sunshine Strong, working hard to help support the logs team down there and helping to transport supplies, make sure that everything was taken care of for the team. Also Topher for the Get Shit Done Award. Topher is an HEO2, Saw God, everything else that you need in the field. You know him and love him, especially if you're on that Kentucky team. I know I screwed that up. Sorry about that. But Topher has been super reliable, always out there working hard to get it done. So super appreciative of him, all his work, especially during 54 Mile, but any other operation he's needed on as well. And then last but certainly not least in those recognitions, the Mission First Gray Shirts Always Award to our own Oscar Arauco. That was the 3rd award of Mission First Gray Shirts Always. If you haven't looked deeply into the culture coins, there's a hierarchy, and Mission First Gray Shirts Always is the top award. Jake Wood himself is our executive chairman, has to sign off on each of those awards. Didn't even hesitate when he read the submission for Oscar and all of the work that he's done for this organization over the years as an administrator, as the field readiness leader, as an incident commander in the field. He is always continuing to develop, mentor, and grow the gray shirts around him. 2 new ones who you folks may not be tracking on is Melissa and Bo. Melissa is our new administrator for Northern Mississippi. And Mississippi, if you guys have been paying any attention to the weather recently or our operational stand-ups, has been hit pretty hard. She jumped right into it, helped out on the recon, and was able to connect us to the right folks to get where we needed to be when we needed to be there. Just a critical asset to getting that team in the field. So huge kudos to Melissa, doing a lot with a little and helping us make a big impact for a community that really needed it. And then Bo was recognized for his work during Sunshine Strong. Bo was down there as a strike team leader, Bo really set the standard, not just leading his own team, but helping to mentor other strike team leaders, took a big lift off that C&G. One of the things that we as an organization are looking at is how to better prepare and support strike team leaders. It's one of the most vital roles in the field. And so huge thanks to him for his service in the field down there during Operation Sunshine Strong. If you see those folks, give them one, give them five, give them a hug and a high five. Melissa's and Bo's awards are being mailed to them because they were not there to accept in person, but super thankful that we were able to celebrate the other three and that all five of these gray shirts are out there repping. If you know someone like that who did something awesome, submit a Culture Coin award. Another call out we want to make to the whole team is just our awardees from TRLC. So Phil Ditto was our nominee and award winner for the Spirit of Service. The Spirit of Service is awarded to a veteran gray shirt who best embodies that continued spirit of service to their community. Phil, you guys have all seen him deploy over and over again earlier last year to the Ukraine. And then throughout the year, been a huge cornerstone part of our C&G recon team. Specifically, his work in Louisiana was noticed, pivoting from the recon into being an IC for a super underserved community. We were the only NGO on the ground, and he basically became the mayor by the time that he left and made a Merry Christmas for a ton of Louisianans. So super appreciative for that. Impact Award is for the gray shirt who has made a significant difference for their teams, and no one can dispute that Ronnie has done that for the San Antonio team down in South Texas. Just huge leaps and bounds, keeping that team focused, getting their service projects organized and filled, on top of everything she does, working through her PhD and working a full-time job. So huge respect and appreciation to her for that. And then last but certainly not least, Stan. Stan the man was down there during Sunshine Strong. I believe he deployed 10 times to the RDC to train gray shirts in core ops and roof tarping. I believe the number of gray shirts he trained is in the, I believe 500 was the number that we quoted out of that, between roof tarping and core ops. And obviously just huge impacts to that operation by improving the quantity and quality of work from consistently deploying down there. Stan's also been a huge help for a lot of the ongoing recovery work in that area. So we're just really thankful to him for his service to his community. That being said, we are thankful to all of you for your work. I'm going to pass it over to Son to close us out strong.
Hey, greetings, team. Reaching you from West Palm Beach. I left our TRC conference to travel down to West Palm Beach for the Governor's Hurricane Conference, where we're doing some great sessions down here. Team Rubicon will be briefing on Thursday, so we're looking forward to that. I want to echo a lot of the kudos to the team here. The awardees, well-deserved. Again, just to echo Drew, people are doing wonderful things, guys. Make sure that you honor them by submitting them in for those culture coins in the future. A lot of the key things that people have already said, along with our functional leads, our staff, our volunteers, I really want us to appreciate the time that we had together down in Orlando. I hope that you guys learned something. I hope you guys have made new friends, was able to connect with old ones as well. I want you to take that information that you learned from the TRC and bring it back to us, so we can continue to do some wonderful things around recruitment, around training, around making sure that we could establish programs to create those service projects, those mitigation operations, recovery operations, because those things are what is going to make those communities hold successful. I want to also reiterate what Tim was talking about with the building a bench. I'm already setting up with our leaders within the full-time staff to review that. I think it's a great system that Brian and the North Branch is using to at least give us something that we can build upon until we start automating a lot of the things that they're managing in that process. But I think it's going to be wonderful for us. I also want to make sure too, man, that I know I've heard logistics and our logisticians talk about doing those inventories. Those inventories are so important. And I believe Rich talked about for Tennessee, the next inventory is in June. Let's make sure that we keep those things up, man, because we review those every month. I think just last month, we had about 5 that we still needed to do some inventories, whether it was cash or the trailers. Let's make sure we keep those things up as well. Those AERs and those hot washes are very important to us as well. We have to make sure that we're reviewing those hot wash, going over those hot washes, reviewing those and conducting those AERs so we can make sure that we improve, sustain what we are doing. But those things are also what the directors are looking at and making sure that we're keeping track on our successes and things that we need to improve upon. Recruitment. Not just recruiting just general gray shirts all the time. I want us to make sure that we're recruiting those next leaders, those ones that we need for mobilization, planning, logisticians, things that we need in C&G. Those are the only things that are going to let us keep deploying and not have to scramble to see who can be placed in these roles. We got to make sure that we make TR as a place to volunteer and TR as a place to have those leaders to lead us as we want to go forward. Finally, I want to tell you guys thank you again for being who you are, being able to attend, taking the time away from your families, taking the time away from your normal lives to come and spend those 2 to 3 days down in Orlando to speak with us, to share your ideas. I had some wonderful conversation with so many of you while I was there, learned so much from you guys. It's all sincere, guys. What's beautiful about everyone on this call that you're all sincere, you're all intentional about doing great things, not just for the communities, but for the teams, the teammates that are on here and our colleagues that are not on this call. Continue to keep doing that. I appreciate it. The team appreciate it. As you guys heard, Art brags about you guys every time him and I are talking one-on-one. He brags about how the South Branch and how you guys keep the energy to keep doing what you're doing after all of these operational days. So I appreciate it. Let's keep rocking. We know we're getting ready to hit that month next month. We're prepared for it. We're professionals. We're going to also be intentional again about doing the things we need to do to take care of those communities. So that's all I have, Drew. I don't want to prolong it. I know that you have been a great MC as always. So I pass it back over to you. Thank you, guys. Take care.
All right. Thank you, Sand. That concludes your May All Hands. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned a thing or two. If you have remaining questions, feel free to hang around. We'll take them in the order that they're presented. But beyond that, I'll kill the recording. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Carol, your hand is high in the air. What you got, ma'am?
It is up. All right. During the finance presentation, I used a quote. And that quote could be from a book, a song, an opera, a movie, whatever. But the first gray shirt that can identify what that quote's from, I will send a gift. So the gist of my thought is, when finance speaks, you need to listen. So there you go.
I'm excited to win a prize.
There you go.
Excellent. We'll announce that to the world and we'll see who gets it. Rose, what you got, ma'am?
I had to get my mic off. For April, I'm not sure if she's still on the call. For wellness, I know one of the big things is we're working towards making sure we're checking in and gray shirts are focusing on their mental wellness before, during, and after. And I admit I have not taken the Grab Your Go bag, which is very popular with new gray shirts. I admit I have not done that, and I kind of should do that, honestly. But is there a way to include like a small snippet, if it's not already, within that grab your go bag or welcome to the tribe when they're expecting to go on operations. Because I've seen gray shirts go on operations, and while we kind of give them a warning, they're not fully prepared sometimes for what they see. So having that kind of a little bit of a help in the virtual sessions might be a little bit more helpful. I don't know if that's something that's being worked on to be integrated into those.
I'm going to ask you to pass that information to Beth Dumont or Oscar Aracco with the field readiness team. They've been doing the monthly battle briefs, which are a big part of our pre-operational deployment briefs for Gray Shirts. So I think that's a great avenue to do that. And then typically we try to have our ICs brief that as well for folks in the fields. They're tracking resources before they go back home. And then last but not least, try to do a reach out touch point. But if there's any other inputs or things I missed, somebody else wants to jump in with a great response to Rose's question, call it out now. Otherwise, I'll consider it fully answered. Any other questions? Phil the man.
Hey, Drew, I saw your answer to the chat, but I had a follow on for that, right? So when we're working in spaces, especially like the Navajo Nation, right? Like I want to make sure that if we're being culturally sensitive, especially to, indigenous cultures, underserved populations, especially unique cultural structures that we may not interface with very often, that we're getting the best information possible to inform those decisions, right? And to inform those briefings. Just because it's sitting right next to me, this is literally the textbook that I read like in grad school for just the Cherokee. I have 2 for the Navajo Nation, and it's all about culture, practices, and concepts, right? So I'm not harping on any of our gray shirts or anything. I'm just curious, are the people that are informing these cultural briefs, like, where are we getting the information from?
And so I think that's like a good call out because it also helps highlight the different layers of opportunity there. I would say the expectation of the local team is not necessarily that they would be subject matter experts, because to your point, most of us are not trained in that unless, even if you happen to be a member of that community, you might still not be the person who knows everything. But the hope is that they will at least know of the existence of the community, right? Like that should be part of the check-in, part of our mission planning is, hey, like, are there particularly vulnerable populations that we need to look into more? So it's not just, looking at the CDC from a raw numbers perspective, it's who lives there. And then once we know that, then yeah, the onus is on first the mission planning team, but then once they're on the ground, that command staff team to make those connections with, if not that local team, that local community themselves, but with a subject matter expert who can give more information. So like a good example of that would be Navajo Nation, because essentially there, what we did was, right, we went to the tribe and we were like, hey, can you come and talk about yourselves to our gray shirts? And they were able to pull us in, and we had gray shirts able to go and like attend some of their ceremonies and see and understand. And obviously no one is going to leave even after a week of immersion an expert, but it at least kind of gives us the curiosity and the starting point to have those conversations from a humble place, and then hopefully get enough understanding to at least be meeting them where they are. And San, I think, has some good inputs to give here as well.
No, just real quick, what we've discussed too, and some of you guys that have been in the military before, and you've gone overseas, you get the cultural background of a country or whatever environment that you're going to go into. So we're working with a third party to make sure that is a normal thing that we're doing. They've done something similar for when we were in Puerto Rico. They did something similar for when we were in some of the communities in Southwest Florida that were mostly Haitian, French Creole speaking. As Drew said, they are developing a more intentional way of for the Navajo Nation. So working with a third party to make sure that we are creating that information. So before our people go into those different areas, whether we're having it as a part of the end briefs at the with the ICs or prior to actually going into an op, we'll be able to discuss things that we need to look at, some of the key points, some of the backgrounds of different cultures. So what I love is that with the CEO Action Group and other third parties that we're partnering with, we're able to develop those types of things as we make sure that we're consciously thinking of being that inclusivity and equity and diversity within these communities that we're partnering with. So we are actively creating information to address those issues.
Love that. I think I'm not trying to make experts. I just want to make sure we're getting information in good, reliable spaces, right? Because culture is a complicated construct. So thank you guys for all you're doing in that space.
No, thank you for the question, man. It's the right conversation to have because, you know, it is such a fraught topic. And as an organization, we're trying to be deliberate. Like we don't want to present ourselves, you know, like, oh, we're the saviors or whatever. But like part of that comes from having that awareness and humility to ask the questions. So like we just want to make sure we're doing that, is the approach. Wyatt, sir, what you got, my friend?
I guess my question more on this still same topic. When is that decision made that we need to attach like a cultural liaison or have a cultural in briefing? Because I understand, you know, when we're going into the Navajo Nation or we're going into Puerto Rico or areas that to us are immediately quote unquote different. I think that this would be a good thing to apply more broadly because, I mean, even within Kentucky, there is a massive amount of cultural heterogeneity. I mean, anyone who was on both Unbridled Spirit and Appalachian Spirit Appalachian Spirit are two wildly different areas.
I remember when I first got to Michigan and found out about the fierce competition between West Michigan, East Michigan, and then they would both unite against their feared and hated opponents to the South in Ohio. So yeah, fully appreciate that, man. Like regional distinctions are everywhere you go, and even when you think, oh, it's just it's just the Midwest or whatever. But it exists and is a real thing. I don't think we're at a point yet where we're like, hey, like you have to do it every operation. You probably could do it on every operation. But I mean, first just from like a practical, like crawl, walk, run, I could say it perspective. We might overwhelm some of the mission planning teams if we start adding that as a requirement for operational planning. And I think the other thing too is just we're trying to figure out, to Phil's point, like what does the process look like? How do we do this in a quality way? So it's a little bit like as identified as a need at the moment. But I think that like the more we do it, the better we get at it, and the more it seems like a normal thing. So a real non-answer to your question, but also just acknowledgement, I think, of where we are organizationally right now in terms of developing. It's a tool we're trying to figure out right now.
I think that OSB's planning team is trying to help us out with mapping of different populations as we going to the different communities. One of the things that I like that we're doing is making people aware that everybody's not the same. And everybody that you're accustomed to being around is not who you're actually serving. At least, you know, back in the day, TR wasn't always aware of that. They were just going and doing stuff. I think we're making them aware that you need to be cautious about how you're involving yourself in some communities, that you have to be aware that people are different. You know, they may be, you know, the hollers. It may be another part of Kentucky. It may be the rural area of someplace in Florida to the urban areas or the city. So it's just being aware that there are differences and how do we address those.
Any other questions? This has been the most and the best questions, I think, after an all hands since I've been doing post all hands questions. This is exciting.
Okay, Drew, if you like that, explain the structure.
I mean, Drew, I was just gonna make jokes about what happens when you send scouts out on Advon. You get phone calls that last like an hour and a half.
As long as you're not hooking up tiny trailers to big semis, I'm okay with it.
Better
Rodney,
than
bless
the other
you.
way around. Big trailers to tiny trucks.
Rodney, bless you again, man. You just keep sneezing.
No
Rodney was
questions.
sweeping all that dust, man. Whatever that dust you was sweeping up must have come up and started you sneezing.
Man, I've been cleaning filters and everything else tonight, so it's been wild. So I got shit everywhere. That's why I got this picture up here so y'all see this mountain.
Can I add one thing? Because I didn't get to do my briefing.
Go ahead, Jeannie. What you got?
Membership. No, I was just going to add because it came up in from our membership functional outbreak that word. Anyways, but there are functional onboarding trainings that will help you understand your new onboarding. And I think there's been some lack of communication to where a lot of new leaders are not getting their full onboarding effects. So I believe it's something that's going to be worked from membership and new volunteer management on how to better onboard our members, as well as give them feedback within the year of, like the minimum expectations. People can go above and beyond, but we're not trying to stress people out and we're not trying to micromanage people, but there is a functional onboarding class that they can take, and it's offered regularly. So if you can't find it, don't know where it's at, or it's been a really long time since you take it, refreshers are always good on all functional categories, from membership to planning to everything. That is really good and helpful for everyone to have.
Jeannie, all my teams onboarded fully.
Sweet, but I absolutely loved being at TRLC. This was my first one in person, and with and I've said it previously, with every operation that I've been on in TR since I joined in 2018, it triggers things from my deployments. So this TRLC, with the help of some other people within it, has helped relieve the sense of seeking safety. So cognitively, I've gone through other things, but there are so many wonderful people that, if you give them just enough information, they understand, and they don't ask for anything more, and they sit with you, and they can tell you out loud that it's safe here, even if the situation doesn't make sense to them, that it wasn't safe to begin with. But the people are in TR, they're beautiful people.
Yeah, hug the Genie on that note. I'm going to bed.
Yep. Any other questions or inputs, or we can put a pin in this one, y'all?
Guys, I just want to say real quick, good night. I hope you guys have a blessed evening. Cheers.
Tell Daddy DeSantis we said, what's up, son?
Good night, everyone.
Good night, y'all.
Have a good night, y'all.
Good night.